sometimes I may feel like I'm in the back burner,
Right.
but it's not really that. It's we're evolving as humans, which is what you're supposed to do.
Right.
So yeah, you're marrying the unknown, and you know, again, like, how do men deal with that? How do women deal with that? So it's never a thing where it's just a one script, one blueprint. You're continuously trying to figure things out, communication, and I want to have real conversations about how people deal with these things.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are back, and we have wellness in the building today.
Yeah.
Welcome to Inside the Mind. I have to have diversity on here, so I'm so glad we're doing this, because my men's physique brother's been killing me. But listen, who do we have here? She started competing 3.5 years ago. She turned pro in 2021 after only doing 3 national shows, and you've been competing a lot this year from what I've seen, but she's done 6 pro shows already. No Olympic qualifications yet, but they on their way. Trust and believe that. We have Miss Quintaysia. We're gonna call her Q today.
Yes.
Welcome to the pod. Welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So here at Inside the Mind, which, you know, I'm pretty sure we've already kind of debriefed, we want to dive into the mental side of the sport. I know you probably get a lot of questions as far as like, hey, what are you eating, or how much cardio are you doing, or, you know, posing, or all that stuff, which I don't want to negate, but there is a humanistic side to the things that we do as athletes, and that's the part I want to tap into. So on that note, for a mental check-in, how are you doing these days?
I'm doing good now. I had my wallow moment after Texas. So like I saw with your interview with Ariel, where it's like, you know, sometimes you gotta like eat some cookies to get yourself back in like a good space. So the good thing I was in Texas, I was like, give me the barbecue, give me the Texas, all that, and then I'll be good. Tacos makes everything better. So yeah.
Man, I need to be more on the savory side. I go straight for sweets. It's all bad.
Oh yeah, I'm a big savory person.
Yeah, maybe I should start doing shows where it's more savory stuff. Maybe that might be.
Yeah, because then you can say like, oh, well, it's a burger. It's like a refeed. You know, you can like talk yourself into it being a refeed.
Yeah, I'm gonna remember that. So, how many shows did you do this year?
I did 3 this year.
You did 3,
but I did them like literally every other week. I was on stage.
Yeah, I've seen that. How is that? As far as it's what we call like running the gauntlet, where you're doing like 3 or more shows like back to back to back. How taxing can that be? Not just on the body, but on the mental side.
Well, I guess for me, I really wanted to challenge myself this year. I think when you're a new pro, you have to kind of figure out what works and doesn't work, rather than when you're further along in the game where there's so much more at stake, where, you know, kind of taking a chance on things isn't the smartest thing when you're, you know, got sponsorships and other things to think about. So I'm like, since it's only my 2nd pro season, let's see, last year I kind of had a big gap between shows. So I wanted to do them back to back, and it just kind of worked out to where, you know, Tampa since I'm in Florida, Tampa was close to home. So where the shows kind of worked out, you know, geographically, and like where family and stuff was, I was like, well, let's just do them and see how I like that method of competing, you know, back to back, rather than doing a show and having a big stretch of time, you know, trying to hold that conditioning. Because for me, I hate doing that, you know, having to like hold conditioning for like 6 weeks or so. I'm just like, I rather just, if I'm in shape, you know, let's just get back on stage kind of thing. So.
Okay. Man, it's so funny because taking this year off, I used to think like, okay, I wanted space in between shows for whatever reason. So like I did my pro debut, and I only was set to do my pro debut. I kind of just wanted to get it out the way.
Yeah.
And so this was September of last year. And now I'm kind of wishing like, dang, I was in shape. Like the Legions was right around the corner, which is not that far. and then there was another show locally from where I'm at, close to LA, that was in Anaheim in November.
Yeah.
So in hindsight, I think about it like I probably should have just did it, but a couple things happened. It didn't go my way, and it was a whole bunch of pressure I put on myself. So I was like, you know what? I'm taking the time off, and I've been
Yeah.
off ever since. So, but I'm taking your advice next year for sure. I'm 5 in a row. I don't care.
Yeah, because I just feel like, and then a lot of times it's just, the name of the game in the beginning. Also, it's just getting your face out there. I feel like
Mm-hmm.
just FOMO and serious, like, hey, it's me again, kind of thing. So, no matter kind of what the outcome is, I think judges kind of appreciate you putting yourself out there and taking whatever feedback that might be, and keep trying rather than just disappear and then you come back. I just rather stay fresh in their mind, kind of thing. So.
Got you. I will definitely do that. So, Q, how did you get into the sport of bodybuilding?
Well, it's funny because wellness is new to NPC IFBB, new,
Mm-hmm.
but it's been around for a while, and I've followed wellness like 2013, 2014, like when I was in college, because I was just follow a lot of the girls that I would follow because I just liked their physique.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't realize that they were competitors, and then I realized, oh, they do wellness, but I'm like, wellness wasn't here. So I would go to coaches and they'd be like, wellness, what's wellness? So I was thinking if I'm going to compete, I probably might have to travel or find someone who's familiar with it. But what originally got me into it, my dad is kind of an old G meathead.
Okay.
So I love old school bodybuilding. Like, Lee Haney is like the man in our household. So my dad is a huge Lee Haney fan. Yeah. So that's like my initial exposure to bodybuilding. So I didn't even realize that there was women's divisions, other than just women's bodybuilding until I started, hanging out with people who competed. And then I started learning about all the divisions and everything. So, but I knew I wanted to do wellness. So I was either going to travel to do it or just wait until it came here. And it just so happened that when I reached out to the first coach here locally, the next year wellness came out. So I was like, it's a sign. So yeah, so that's when I kind of
Definitely
jumped in. But it's crazy because that was also COVID year, so it was just a little,
Ooh, wait. So COVID year was your first year?
Yeah, my first show ever was Arnold Amateur, and it literally was March. So like when COVID was, that's when shows were shutting down.
Wow.
So they let us do the show, but we couldn't have any spectators. So it was like the weirdest first show experience. It was like 5 people and like the judges and like some random, workers in the the arena. So yeah, it was a very interesting first show. But yeah.
So I remember that now because again, COVID, I was trying to find anywhere to go to compete.
Yeah.
I felt like, oh, 2020 is going to be my year. I don't care because I was coming off my first national show the previous year. So I was like, yeah, I'm going to go to the Arnold Amateur. I was going to touch every stage. Like, I didn't care.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, and then COVID hit and they were like kind of in the middle about having it. So like I canceled plane tickets, all that stuff. But then they still had it. Like, it was literally no crowd. But then
yeah, like the night before we found out, it was like the craziest. Yeah.
Oh, so they told you guys the night before?
Yeah, like we were in line, getting tans and all that stuff, and they were like, I had my posing coach was like, "Did you hear? We can't have any spectators." And then everyone was scrambling, trying to get their coaches. It was like literally the night before we found out because I think the governor like sanctioned the show. Like, no, there's no spectators because we were all going to just try to sneak in kind of thing. But yeah, but they shut it down. So at the very least, they're like, okay, the athletes can go on stage because that's kind of when no one knew what it was. So they just didn't want to take it, kind of thing. So yeah.
How, if it was, because it was new, like no one knew what it was that a scary thing at that time? Because we were all first finding out at that time and you just happened to be at your first show. Like what was it like being there?
I mean, I think at that point it was still just so new that everyone was just like, hey, we're healthy. I think we all just kind of thought of it as like, how like when swine flu came out, it sounded like a big deal, but it ended up really not turning into something as big as, COVID did. So I think at that point, no one really took it seriously. And then like the next week, all the shows were getting shut down. We're like, oh, maybe it is maybe it is a bigger deal than what we thought. So yeah.
Yeah, it was definitely becoming a big deal because
Mm-hmm.
I remember like I had planned to go to South Carolina in May. I had planned to go to USA's in July. Like all these ones that I was planning on, they just kept getting pushed back and pushed back.
Yeah.
So a lot of the stories, like you might hear, like people being in prep forever, like and I was one of them. So
Yeah. That was such a weird year because I did that show, and then my rebound was weird because by the time I came back home, all the gyms were closed.
mm,
It was just like the world was shut down. So, how do you really capitalize on that? Post show, you're eating food, but then I was restricting my diet even more because I couldn't really train the way I, normally could. I'm just doing like home workouts and running. So it was just very, very strange times.
and so you had a weird first experience. That's
Yeah, so like, if I can go through that, I can get through anything.
pretty much. So it's kind of like you grew up in a bodybuilding household. Is it what you expected now that you kind of, besides the whole COVID thing, like
Yeah.
getting into it yourself, was it what you expected?
Um, Not really, because I think on my end it was my dad was kind of like he didn't compete, but he loved bodybuilding. Like he like lived that bodybuilder lifestyle. Like he was running, miles every morning, training like crazy. So, he was always watching like, Pumping Iron, all that kind of stuff. Like I watched all those movies and stuff. So I guess in my head, it was just that old school, just, you go train, you eat, and you just work out and get on stage. But then once you're in it, you realize, I don't know if it's just maybe over time how the sport has evolved. There's so much more that goes into, your presentation. Obviously the women's side is very different than dudes who are just like you just wake up and basically tan and get on stage. So I think the presentation side of things and the more being more strategic and what shows you want to do, I think there was a lot more strategy than I realized, in the sense of, hey, if you want to make this something that's more than just a hobby, you have to put more thought into your career overall. Think of it as a career and as a business rather than just something you just do for fun. So that part is different. But the training and all that's how you get into it. So that part should always stay enjoyable and just fun.
Yeah, that is the fun part. Especially today, I got my butt kicked today. I ain't gonna lie.
Yeah.
But I mean, we live for it. But
Yeah.
you did mention how, yeah, for guys, it is, yeah, we go get tanned. All right, what time we got to be on stage? Okay, cool. We'll go down
Mhm.
there hour before. Like it's very routine-ish, I would
Yeah.
say. So, but for the women, it's a lot of these variables that go into it.
Hmm.
Talk to me a little bit about how you handle those variables, and can it be stressful to even deal with those things? When things kind of run off schedule, like how stressful can that
Oh,
be?
oh my gosh. So that's funny that you say run off schedule. So I did Chicago first this year,
Mm-hmm.
and I had my makeup booked because I feel like the last couple of years you get better at getting the routine. You get like, okay, let me make sure I book my lady in enough time to get my makeup. You're going to makeup appointments at like 3 a.m. It's like so ridiculous, to get everything done before you get on stage.
That's
I've
crazy.
had makeup appointments at like 3 in the morning, and then you got to just wait around until it's time to get on stage. It's crazy. So I booked my makeup girl, and then I guess one girl on her team had a car accident. So she was trying to fit everybody in. And I literally got to the venue while everyone was like in line. They're like, oh my gosh, you're here, Glazer. And I just walked on stage, didn't pump up anything for Chicago. It was amazing that I got fourth still, first call outs, but it
What?
was one of those things to where I was just like, this is not happening.
That's
So
crazy.
now I'm like, okay, let me just make sure if I book someone, that's my person. They come to me. You know what I mean? I'm the only person they're worried about that day. And that made everything else so much more smooth because, it is what it is. Sometimes you want convenience of, oh, this is the person for the show, or, this person's doing my friend's makeup, so I'll jump into. But I'm like, the more I can just focus on my day, someone's just there for me. I think you just kind of have to be strategic as to whatever is going to be less stress on your mind come show day, show morning, just book it. Even if it costs a little extra money, just just plan ahead kind of thing.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's you're not about to wake me up at no 3:30.
Yeah, you gotta be there at 3, so you gotta wake up at like 2:30 to get
Yeah,
there.
see, no. It's been
Yeah.
like the day before the show, I'm probably barely going to sleep at 12 because I'm trying to play everything out in my head.
Mm-hmm.
If I gotta be up by 2, it better be with some pancakes.
I know,
Something.
and guys get like pancakes and all this, so you're up at like 2 a.m. eating like your little like I have like salmon and rice or whatever it is. Trying to plan my meals at 2 a.m. is such a weird time, but you make it work.
That's crazy. So how surreal was it doing the Chicago Pro? Because I know, like, if I'm rushed on, that has to be nerve-wracking to not have literally nothing go your way.
Yeah, and then Steve was the head judge there, so I was already like, okay, this show's and it's my first show of the season, so the first show of your season, it's not like you're nervous, but you're like, okay, this is my big reveal kind of. So I was just like, this is not happening. I just didn't, because it's one of those things you can't really do anything about it, but just put on a smile and just make it work. But in my head, I was just like, this is not happening right now. So you make the best of it. But when I'm on stage, so I used to do pageants, and I went to a performing arts school when I was in high school and everything. So I'm like a big performative person. Like I used to teach dance. So the stage to me is the fun part. So as soon as my foot touches that stage, I was like, makeup, what? That didn't happen. So I just had a good time, because for me, that's like the icing on the cake. That's my favorite part of competing. So, you just kind of have to let it roll off your back. And I'm like, at least I made it. At least I made it to the stage.
You did that and placed fourth. That's what's up. That is what's up. And then you mentioned Steve being a head judge. Oh, Steve make everybody nervous.
I know, and I was like, this is already like a nerve-wracking situation.
That's crazy. Because even, I mean, not just Steve in particular. Like, I mean, again, we're in a subjective sport. It just feels like Steve is like the head of that in a sense sometimes. But how
Olympia caliber, judges. So you're like, hey, their opinion kind of shapes, how you judge your off season, and everything from those kind of.
Yeah, that's funny because my pro debut, he ended up, I guess, flying out here. No one knew he was coming.
Oh my God.
Seen him on the panel, and I kid you not, like some people was back there like, oh, I guess there goes my place. And it's great. Like I don't know. Maybe I need to be in it long enough to even realize it, or maybe I'm just naive. I just feel like it's just subjectivity all across the board. And then so even with that, how do you come to grips with that? And the reason why I ask that is because you put in all this work, pretty much be criticized.
Yeah,
there's only one winner. So like, how do you deal with that part?
I'm still learning how to deal with that. To be honest, like I deal with it in the sense of, the way I deal with it is, if you put your all into it and you did everything that you were supposed to do, no matter what the outcome, at least you can walk away and be like, okay, hey, they just gave me feedback and this is something I can improve upon, rather than it's like, oh man, I do know I ate like 3 cookies, 3 weeks out. I was supposed to, you know what I mean? Because you can replay the things that you could have done better or you slacked on. So for me, what did they say? Like preparation, helps to not be nervous, helps when you're on stage. If you're prepared, usually those nerves and all of that kind of self-doubt goes away. So I just try to overly prepare and make sure I do everything to the T, because, hey, if I did everything my coach said, that's no pressure on me. That's pressure on my coach now. So if I did everything I was supposed to, hey, coach, this is what they said. Now what's the game plan? Because, as athletes, we basically just do what we're told, kind of thing. So you kind of have to think of it that way. You're kind of a team with your coach. So
absolutely. Let me repeat what you said. It's ringing. And I hope a few of my athletes hear this. If you do everything you are requested to do, you can turn back to your coach and say, hey, what happened? Not the other way around.
Yeah, and not even like in a negative way, but, that's their job too. Like, obviously you're on stage and people just see the end result of you parading around, but, that's why you take the time to pick a coach that you trust and know, hey, if it just wasn't my day, it wasn't my day. But wasn't my day, or did I not do my job, or were they not? Is this a good fit? Whatever whatever the situation may be. But hey, that's the pressure off of me. Hey, this is my feedback. Let's go back to the drawing board, because that's all you really can do when you've done everything in your power.
Exactly. And I mean, that's the beauty in it. Like, we're all chasing, I guess the term is perfection. Will never be that, but I guess that's the beauty and the, I guess, the beast, in a sense, if I had to name
Mhm.
it, sport, like where we're chasing this unattainable feat.
Yeah.
And then within that feat, you mentioned like there can be doubt. And we all get it. Like, we're not absolved from that. It happens. We're our own worst critic. How do you deal with those times and days, like you may have those doubts in your inside your head about maybe it's your progress or going into a show or even in the off season?
Yeah. Well, I know you mentioned like we're chasing perfection. And so I've tried to change in my mind and say, hey, I'm chasing the criteria.
Mm,
Every division has its criteria, because if we're being honest, most of us how we look on stage, we wouldn't prefer to look like that in everyday life. So you're chasing what is the idealistic criteria for that division. So for me, I know wellness obviously is, I'm on the smaller end because I just started, I'm new. So
mhm.
I always have to put in my head, okay, I have self doubt, but look how much you kind of have to revert back. Look how much I've accomplished in this short amount of time. Look how many people would love to be in my position that I'm currently in, who are still chasing a pro card, or who have never
Right.
gotten the first call out. So you have to utilize those wins, however small or however insignificant they may seem to you at the moment, and put them into perspective of, someone else would love to be in the position that you're in. So as long as this is what you truly love to do, because no one would be putting themselves through the things that we do if we didn't truly love it. You have those moments, but then you just go back to work. And I feel like if you keep doing the action, the emotions will catch up. Because some days you have bad days, but when you go to the gym, you still train. And then when you're in the gym, you realize this is why I love doing this. I love training. Like those emotions will catch up to the action if you just keep putting one foot in front of the other.
Exactly. And then again, like, trying to reach, you have the perfect mindset for that. You're chasing the criteria.
Yeah.
And that is like so important when it comes to how you train and how you eat, stuff like that. But that also removes, the doubt,
Hmm.
when it does creep into your head. And what I tell a lot of like the people that I coach, like, look, that stage look it's not forever. It's
Yeah.
literally like your 15 seconds of fame.
Hmm.
Like, that's literally what it is. Like, I don't know if you get that often, like, hey, I want to look like you forever, like I want your body or I
Yeah.
want your physique. Like, what do you tell people that wants to have this so-called stage look forever, because it's not realistic?
Well, for one, I always tell people like you can never look like me, and not to say like, oh, I look so good, but everyone's body, there's so many elements that go into that stage look, that even if someone did all the same diet, all the same training,
Hmm.
you're a totally different person. So I always tell people you have to run your race. I know that's like so overly used, but you really do have to run your own race, because okay, once you get on stage and then you like that look, enjoy the moment, but also keep your life into perspective. That's why I always tell people like, do you have any other hobbies other than competing? Because a lot of times you can be so obsessed with this, and it does feel like the whole world crashes down when you don't look like your stage look. But I think having that balance in everyday life, because this doesn't, as a whole, doesn't last forever. It's a very short term kind of career. Even if you are competing as long as you would like to, you still have other things in life that keeps your interest, or you can kind of take your mind off of bodybuilding for a little bit and be like, hey, I like you know going to cycling classes, or I'm involved in this organization. I think having that balance will help when you do have those, that emotional dump after competing. You got to put that energy somewhere. So that's why I like to kind of give myself, okay, when I'm in off season, I want to do this, this, and this to give myself other goals other than just always being shredded all the time.
Okay, that's really good because that balance is so key.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just finding it this year.
Yeah, I think it's a process because like in the first year, I was like, okay, now what? Like I got off stage and I was literally like, now what? And some girl came to me and was like, yeah, I know. Sometimes you just have to talk to someone else. She put it in perspective. She's like, I know that's how it feels, but it'll be okay. Like it's a short moment on stage, and no one prepares you for that part. It's just like,
I
okay.
definitely wasn't prepared. So I had the luxury of having a coach who she was like, we're gonna do back to back to back shows. I literally did 5 shows in 5 months.
Oh wow.
Part of that was ego because
Mm-hmm.
I ended up placing last in my very first show after making a promise to my mom that I would compete. So then that promise became something else because I'm not finishing last. So it was definitely ego.
That's usually how it starts, too.
Yeah. So then I was like, all right, we're gonna run it back, did another show. All right, boom, we're gonna run it back, did another show. And it became such a blur.
Yeah.
Like I till this day, like I don't remember moments backstage for some of those shows. I think like my second show, I don't even remember being on stage, which is
Mm-hmm.
crazy. So yeah, people have to realize and enjoy that because again, it's your 15 seconds of fame.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
like that balance. But what gives you because I'm pretty sure like you said, you're running a business, you're competing at a top level. Speak to me about what gives you balance and how that impacts you mentally on the positive side.
Um. So it's gonna sound funny, but I try to keep friends and partners around me who don't give a crap about social media, which is very important because, you know, that feeling of, oh, do I look good? Or you feel like, oh man, I killed that workout. And then you go on Instagram and you're like, oh man, she looks amazing. And when you have people around who are like, who's that? Or, that puts into perspective because you're going crazy over this. And meanwhile, someone at your job thinks the Olympia is the Olympics, or, they've never even heard of these people. So I think having people around you who know you for you and don't know you for being a bodybuilder or don't know you for being a competitor and just like you as a human being, I feel like it's very important with keeping things in perspective because when you're tripping out, they're like, okay, are you done? Because, we want to go do other things. And you're like, oh man, I'm kind of like being dramatic over, a bodybuilding competition. Like it's important to you, yes, and you kind of keep that in perspective. But then they show you, there's more to life. And hey, I like you as a person, and I'm just happy that we got to see you on stage, and now let's go out for dinner afterwards. I think that helps tremendously because you're not chasing, some social media clout all the time because they could give two craps about how many followers you have or how many likes you got on that picture. They're just like, hey, you look better than me. So having that balance of, hey, I have my personal goals and challenges to improve, but there's people in my life who want me to be there as a human being, and I can't be a human being if I'm always being in a bodybuilder competitor mode.
That's true. And then but that could work the other way too, which I
Yeah.
felt some of that pressure a little bit, even in my own household, with my wife, with close friends. It's like, man, that's all you doing. Cause I got so hung up on chasing that pro card. And it
Yeah.
was just like, man, is this all you do? All you do is go to the gym. Like, dude, we get it. You look great already. I used to hear that from like close friends. And
Yeah.
it used to bother me, but now I understand it because again, like this is the first year like I'm actually finding the balance part where it's just like, you know what? I don't need to be so, especially if I'm not even competing this year, I don't need to be overly concerned about who's on stage, what shows. Like, I don't
Yeah.
need to, like, this is my time to give back to those who have been supporting me like this whole time. So that's been giving me tremendous amount of balance because those first 2 years, it was like, nope, it's pro
Yeah.
nothing. I'm in the gym, Mills with me. Like, I don't care. I'm gonna get it. I'm gonna get it. And I was putting off time for everybody.
Yeah. I mean, and
So
then it's important that, it's because I try to be make a point is like the core people in your life, because some people might be saying that because they just kind of want to see you fail. There are people who just make me jealous and be like, oh, you don't have to do that much, because they just, don't like seeing that level of discipline because it makes them feel bad. But, my family has understanding that, hey, when I'm on prep, they know, okay, that's her thing. She needs to be focused for those few months. And then when you're off prep, then it's like, okay, now I can get back to you. It's that exchange of, they respect my time and they respect when I need to kind of buckle down. And then it's a lifestyle. It doesn't take anything for, to prepare your meals and go to your family's house, but just bring your food with you. You don't have to be dramatic. Like, we all know the times where you need to be strict and kind of be a hermit. But, if grandma's having a birthday party, just bring your chicken and rice and, and hang out. It's not a big deal.
I'll be bringing it because my meal preps, they used to be in like these orange containers. I used to order from. And I showed like, oh, you in the orange containers again? Oh, well, get over it. Y'all not messing up my diet.
Yeah, you can be there physically without having to, alter goals still. So,
yeah, it is what it is. But how, because you said you keep your core of people who don't really focus or pay attention to social media, but we're in a day and age where everything is just a like away, a click away. And fortunately, but unfortunately, like sometimes your business is predicated on, your presence in social media. So how do you deal with, if there is any pressure regarding social media, because social media can be very toxic at times?
Yeah. I don't know if I feel it as much, and because I'm still like, I feel like I'm just like I don't want to say a nobody, but I'm still new. I'm like a baby in the sport. So I don't get as bad as someone who obviously has a huge following would. So for the most part, it's, I post what I like, and if you don't like it, whatever. But from the business side of things, I think that's the way to keep perspective, is to be like, okay, this is how I'm marketing my business, or I'm posting this for fun. Like, if you keep it still fun and lighthearted, and you just post things that you truly, you believe in, or, hey, I liked this picture, I don't think it needs to be so deep. I think the more pressure comes from, okay, I have to be careful with, like when I'm close to a show, they put out the list of who's competing. Let me go to, let me see who's competing. Or, this person said 7 weeks out. And then I go to the calendar and I'm like, what show is 7 weeks out from now? So that's my part where I have to be like, okay, stop. And just focus on yourself, post what you like, look at yourself, if anything, and just, enjoy you and your process, and not be worried about what everybody else is doing. If you can appreciate other people, but when it crosses the line of being like, oh man, she looks like that 3 weeks out, and then you put your picture next to their picture, like so that's the part I had to kind of be like, just
you
look at your
to my soul right now.
Yeah, like if you have to put some people on mute for a little bit before a show, do whatever you have to do. Like, no one should make you feel bad if I just need to unfollow this person for a little bit, or put this on mute for a little bit. Whatever keeps your mental health in a good space before a show, or whatever it might be that's really bothering you, you just have to kind of prioritize. Everyone knows what their personal issue is, and you just have to make effort in giving yourself peace of mind at the end of the day.
Yeah, that was definitely an issue for me. For the national shows, because it was like, okay, you're an amateur, cool. And then you start getting on the national level. And then when you're placing in like these top fives or even first call outs,
then
your following kicks in. So you start seeing some of these same people all the time.
Yeah.
So me, I'm a newbie in the sport. I'm like, okay, follow. Okay, follow. Okay, what they look like. I had it bad like my first 2 shows. I'm like, it was almost a fuel thing. But then I noticed like I was doing it way too much. And then it took that last national show to be like, you know what? I really don't care who shows up. I need to show up my best. That's it.
Yeah. So, yeah, but it's like you said, with everything, it's perspective. It can be, hey, I see them working hard. That's a kick in the butt for me to work hard. But then the double-edged sword, like you said, it can get obsessive. And I think that's where emotional intelligence comes in. Like, you have to know yourself and know, okay, this is starting to be a problem. So if you have to unfollow those people to keep your mental health in a good place, then that's what you have to do. So you just have to have a lot of self-awareness when it gets to that level.
Yeah, the unfollow button works very well these days. I get it.
Just mute their page for a little bit, so they don't think you got beef with them or something. But it's just like I can't be seeing your post every other day because the algorithm. Now you got to see it all the time because you've been clicking on your page.
Like, I try not to talk around my phone. Everything just pop up like that. That's hilarious.
Yeah.
And it again, like I'm very big on protecting my own energy.
Yeah.
And I don't like negativity, period. And especially with having my daughter now, I
Mm-hmm.
just feel like I try to shield her so much from negativity. She's gonna get it. I mean,
Yeah.
that's just the world we live in. But I have to protect myself to protect her. So social media is one of those things. Like I love it as far as like what comes with it. It allows me to stay in contact with people. It allows me to do stuff like this and bring
Mm-hmm.
awareness to this topic.
Yeah.
Like any little thing, I started noticing like when I became a pro and people who I grew up with, they started putting stuff under my like, oh, you do this now. Okay, yeah, that's an unfollow. Like, I'm not even
Yeah,
about to get into back and forth with you.
that's
Like,
true because it's just like you're not about to ruin my day because you got whatever personal issues. So that block and unfollow whatever that button needs to be. Boop.
I love everybody, but I love
Yeah.
myself.
Yeah, social media is supposed to be social, like fun. Like once it becomes, and how we always tell kids, like, okay, that's your screen time limit. We as adults need to give ourselves some screen time limits. And
Hey,
hey,
that's
I post, do what I have to do for business, and then okay, not look at it for a little bit. Just it's one of those things. You gotta self discipline. Discipline is more than the gym.
for real. It is. It is. And then, like, speaking of self, like, how are you prioritizing, with I don't know if your season's over or you're still going, but, everything that is going on, how do you prioritize self care these days instead of just focusing on, shows and competing? Like, how do you prioritize yourself?
Well, I've gone into my off season because I knew I wanted to take. I knew regardless of how the season went, I wanted to take a full year off.
Okay.
Kind of put on more size and put on good quality. Because since I started competing, I've never really taken a long off season. I've just kind of taken a couple months and then got on stage. A couple months, got back on stage. So with that, I knew preparing for this season that okay, if I'm taking a full year off, there's a few things that I want to accomplish under during that time frame. So I think having that game plan before going into the season helped out a lot. So
Okay.
kind of created a schedule because I knew there were things I wanted to do. So um, I know I like cycling classes, like little things that just were fun, but still keeps me in that health and fitness realm. Because I feel like a lot of times when it's just so meat and potatoes, hardcore training, a lot of times we can lose ourselves in bodybuilding and not just enjoy working out and doing fun things. So I'm
Yes.
trying to develop a health and fitness lifestyle because one, bodybuilding doesn't last forever, and two, you want to put things that are going to be long term. That, like you said, self care. That hey, I really like that class, so let me make sure I signed up for that, and I'm going to go to cycling once a week and just do things that are fun that are enjoyable, but still are active and overall good for your health and wellness. Because I feel like that in turn helps with your mental health because you feel good, you're moving your body, and it doesn't need to be okay. I'm only into health and wellness when I'm competing or in competition prep, and then off season I'm just eating Pop Tarts all day. So creating a lifestyle around this, I think, helps me with my self care because then it's like, hey, that's my me time. I go for my walk, I go for my cycling class, so that helps me out a lot.
Your perspective is so dope. It almost appears like you're always in the moment. Does that sound right?
I'm better at it now, but
Okay.
yes, because like I said, like my boyfriend forces me to be like, okay, are you gonna get off your phone? Like you've been on Instagram,
Um,
so it's forced me to take a moment to think like, oh, I am kind of on my phone way too much, and I'm a very big family person, and I think that's what helps as well because when I'm with my family, I'm not thinking about my phone. I just am hanging out with them, so I think that kind of translates to my perspective on things, because at the end of the day, when all this stuff goes away, you just have your family and your maybe one or two friends that are close to you. So I try to prioritize, like, those are the people who I want by my side when all of this is done. So let me not neglect them now, because when it is done, I'm knocking on the door. They're like, "Girl, now did nobody ever see you? Who are you?"
Oh man, that's funny. I found myself going to a lot of functions this year, family wise. Prior to
Mhm.
that, no, I would not go. And it's funny, like, oh, you're here, oh, you're here. All right, the joke's
Now
over.
during prep, they know I'm permanent because I just be tired and I gotta fit so much in my day already. So, but in the
Man,
off season, I really do enjoy those moments that I don't get. During prep, you can't really do it as much as you would like to, even if you wanted to.
absolutely. So, a couple more things. What is your take on the actual term mental health, and
Hmm.
why do you feel it's not as talked about within the sport?
I think it's just because with bodybuilding, it goes hand in hand with that toughness, that tough guy, or strong girl mentality. Just with everyday people, they see a person with muscles. First thing they say is like, "Oh, don't hit me," or like, I'm like, why would I? Or don't fight me. It that look alone just has this stereotype of you're tough.
Okay.
So I think a lot of us have kind of morphed into, okay, I can't really complain because then I'm not disciplined, or I'm not taking this seriously. I think a lot of our weak moments mentally are equated to you're not taking this serious. So we just try to
Hmm.
put it to the side, rather than, I feel like, if we acknowledge it and talk it through, we can decipher, is this just me having a weak moment where I'm just hungry, or is it, hey, this is a bigger issue that I really need to evaluate, kind of thing.
Great answer. Yeah, I do feel like it is very stereotypical from a lot of athletes, including myself initially.
Mhm.
I just felt like, well, no, like I chose to do this. I need to tough it out.
Yeah,
Like we all go through this. I need to suffer. And
I was gonna
realistically,
say the suffering. We glorify the suffering, which is needed, but
yeah,
to what extent?
yeah, exactly. To what extent? And then it got to the point because it's funny, like me being a clinician, I was not using the tools that I've been using for forever
Hmm.
because I just felt like I needed to be tougher in a
Yeah,
sense. So yeah, great response. Great response.
yeah, and I mean, and I have like a strong like faith base, and like
Mm,
every morning I wake up, I have my teachings I listen to every morning, and then my self personal development that I listened to. Like, that was my routine. And then it got to the point to, even when I was training, I don't necessarily even always listen to music. Sometimes I'm listening to motivational talk or something, just to kind of keep my head in a good space. And I think having that routine first thing when I wake up every day helped tremendously, because you're feeding yourself that good energy. And so as your day goes on, you're less likely to have a crap day if you started off on a positive note. Like, things might happen, but I try to force myself, okay, every morning you're listening to your faith base, you're listening to your motivational talks, personal development. And I think that helped my mental health going through prep and just life in general, but especially during prep, for sure.
yeah, that's good. I actually downloaded this motivational app just so it just positive stuff pops up on my phone.
Yeah.
I'm not short of like motivation, and it wavers anyway, but
Hmm.
see stuff like words of affirmation, like it's just like, all right, cool. So that's literally like the first thing I see. So like I think that's dope. So three quick hitters before I get you out of here. Any advice or words of wisdom that you can give to those who are trying to reach the level that you're at now within the sport, like maybe the amateurs?
Um, I would just say, trust your coach and trust the process,
Mm-hmm.
because everyone's timeline is different. I think we can see someone who did it quick, and it's like, man, it didn't happen for me that fast. There's something wrong with me. And there's so many pros who, had to do so many shows and do a million national shows at the, amateur level, who finally got their pro card. But those stories just aren't talked about as much because obviously it doesn't make a big news story. So I think you just have to trust the process and understand that there is no timeline on the journey. And as long as you're enjoying it, keep going. Now, if it's ruining your personal life and you're, if it's ruining your life, maybe take a little step back. But yeah, just trust the process.
All right. So you're taking your year off, and you're getting ready to step back into prep. And when you do that, you have a specific show circled. You're saying is you're gonna win this show. This is the specific show I want to win. Which show is that for you? Besides the Olympia.
I don't know. I didn't even think that far. Well, okay, so I don't know if it's necessarily a win, but I'm from Columbus, Ohio.
Okay.
So I always wanted to do the Arnold. So like getting an Arnold invite to me would be like a win, because I mean, it's Arnold first of all, but like that's the show that in the whole developmental years of bodybuilding, we would go to the Arnold and the expo. So I think being a part of that would be awesome. So fingers crossed one day I get that Arnold invite. But yeah, I'm trying to think about taking this year off, and I'm not getting on stage until I'm going to be undeniable. And then when I'm at that point, whatever show is within that time frame, I'm going to go in there and I'm going to kill it. So that's my
absolutely. Yeah. The Arnold invite's coming. I know they have, you put in your applications October 1st.
Yeah.
So I'm putting mine in. I don't care. It's just going in.
Right? Look, if they invite me, I'm like, you're off who? I'm going on that Arnold stage, and then I'll take a year off.
That's what I'm talking about. And then last but not least, well, first and foremost, thank you for bringing so much diversity to this.
Thanks.
So
wellness.
What happened?
I said wellness. We're putting on wellness on the map.
Okay, so speaking of that, I need you to give me 2 wellness girls who can actually enhance this conversation.
Oh geez, Yami, because she is actually local in my area. She lives in Naples.
Okay.
I'm trying to think of the last couple of shows. Oh, and Joy. Joy.
I honestly think I just.
Oh my gosh, Joy's the home girl, because me and her met in person when I did Mexico, and she is a good time. So yeah.
That's what's up. All right, Yami and Joy.
Yes.
Q is gonna send y'all a message, and
I
I'm gonna follow up on that message. Anyway, Q, thank you so much for doing this and pretty much enhancing this conversation. I can't thank you enough. Your story is amazing. I appreciate you.
Thank you. I'm always like, man, I'm awkward, so let's hope this goes well.
Don't worry about it. I know how to talk. We good. Anyway, I'll see y'all on the next one. Peace.